Drasa is a Russian sharpshooter. She wakes up in a forest cave and marks down her day. While brushing her teeth, she hears a plane landing nearby. Without wasting a moment, she gets her gun ready and patiently waits for her target. As soon as a man gets off the plane, Drasa hoots him dead. She then calmly collects the shell of her bullet. In the next scene, a man named Levi Kane, a former U.S. Marine scout sniper, wakes up from a nightmare in the middle of the night and heads out to the beach to clear his mind. He sits by the beach until sunrise and writes his diary. Suddenly, he gets a text message asking him to report to the Marine Corps base. As he arrives at the base, he meets a woman named Bartholomew, who is in command. Levi greets her with a salute, and she asks him to have a seat. Then she goes over Levi's impressive record of confirmed single-shot kills, but he reveals the real number is greater than they know. Levi takes on occasional sniper jobs for the Marine Corps, but he's got no official contract since a psychologist ruled him unfit for such missions, and he doesn't take any medicines since they affect his accuracy. He admits he needs 3.5 ounces of liquor before he sleeps. Bartholomew asks Levi if he has anyone in his life who couldn't live without him, but he refuses. So she decides to give him a reason in life by offering him a new mission in Pervalka, Lithuania. Meanwhile, Drasa meets her father at a cemetery for her mother's death anniversary. She places a flower on the grave and greets her dad after a long time. They then talk about Drasa's last mission, which is weighing her down. Her dad asks her to hand him the bullet shell to ease her shame. As Drasa hands him the shell, her dad comforts her and asks her to move forward, but she says it's not easy and she can't sleep anymore because of the guilt. Her dad offers her to stay with him for a while, but she refuses because she has to leave for Moscow the next day. Drasa informs her dad that she will be on a secret mission for more than a year. When she asks him about his health, her dad tells her about his declining health because of the cancer and his decision to end his life on February 14th to reunite with his love. He convinces Drasa that it's the only way to relieve his pain and asks her to light a candle for him from wherever she is. They bid each other goodbye. In the next scene, it's September, and Levi wakes up inside a plane cabin from an anesthesia-induced sleep. A soldier arrives there and asks him to scan his fingerprints. She then takes his belongings in a case and informs him that they will enter in no-fly zone in minutes, where he'll jump out and walk the rest of the way to his destination, which is a gorge. Levi grabs his bag and prepares for the jump. As he jumps out of the plane, his parachute deploys and he lands safely on the ground. For a day, he walks through forests, crosses rivers, and climbs mountains to reach his destination. Upon arrival, he is greeted by his senior commander J.D. Drake. Levi asks J.D. about the mission and learns that J.D. has been stationed there for a year, and just like him, J.D.'s got no clue where they actually are. J.D. reveals that Levi is the first person he's met in a year, and his mission is finally ending tonight. Then J.D. shows him the West Tower observation post, which is going to be Levi's home for a year. This post is equipped with everything Levi will need to survive, and J.D. briefs him all about this place. Levi suddenly notices another post on the opposite side of the gorge. J.D. tells him that it's the East Tower post, and it's completely inaccessible due to mines and barriers. Also, they're forbidden to communicate with anyone on the other side. International Coalition sends 2 soldiers every year to patrol the west and the east posts. J.D. tells Levi that his job is to keep watch over the gorge, reload the turrets every day, and activate cloakers that keep the place hidden from satellites and Google Maps. He informs Levi that there's a full arsenal outside, and every 30 days he has to submit a report to the authorities through radio. J.D. says Levi cannot communicate in any way except for a panic button on the radio, only in case of an emergency. He warns that if Levi hears air raid sirens at the top of the tower, he better run because it's a sign of imminent danger. However, Levi still doesn't understand his mission. J.D. tries to sum it up, saying that he's not there to stop anyone from getting in. Instead, his job is to make sure whatever's inside the gorge never gets out. J.D. tosses a grenade into the gorge, and an inhuman scream follows the explosion. Levi wonders what it is. J.D. explains they call them Hollow Men, and nobody knows what they are. He tells Levi that back in the 1940s, 3 entire battalions were sent into the gorge to clean it out, and not even a single man returned. Since then, authorities have shifted to a pure containment strategy, and they're the ones guarding the gates of hell. Later, J.D. leaves the tower, and Levi takes over his new home. He spends a casual day. Meanwhile, J.D. arrives at the pickup point and is picked up by a helicopter. After confirming his identity, he is shot down on Bartholomew's orders. In the next scene, it's October, and Levi has already settled into his routine performing his duties. He patrols the perimeters, activates cloakers, and checks turrets before submitting his first report on the radio. There, he notices a bookshelf. While reaching for a book, he notices something etched into the wall behind the shelf. He moves it aside and discovers notes left behind by soldiers stationed at the post since 1947. Later, while working in the garden, Levi notices some movement at the east post. He rushes to get his binoculars and spots Drasa cutting the wood. Drasa notices him too, but ignores him. At night during the storm, Levi wakes up from a nightmare at the sound of thunder. He quickly grabs his rifle in fear and accidentally steps on the broken glass and injures his foot. While cleaning his wound, he notices Drasa staring at him. As she notices Levi looking at her, she puts off the candles beside her and gets inside. Another month passes, and Drasa is seen celebrating her birthday. Meanwhile, Levi is writing something in his diary. Out of boredom, Drasa starts spying on Levi. Then she grabs her gun and fires a shot in the sky to get Levi's attention. As she succeeds, Drasa shows Levi a note asking for his name. Levi also replies to her with a note reminding her they're not supposed to communicate. Drasa writes back with her name and says she'll do whatever she wants because it's her birthday. Amused, Levi replies with his name too and raises a glass of liquor for her. Excited, Drasa plays music and starts dancing. She asks Levi to dance along. However, he refuses to dance, calling himself a terrible dancer but a good sniper. Drasa wants him to show his shooting skills, but Levi remembers they aren't supposed to interact and stops. Right then, Drasa shoots his glass. In response, Levi quickly grabs his gun too and shoots Drasa's bottle. Impressed, Drasa places another bottle on her head and challenges Levi to shoot. Suddenly, a strange thing catches her attention, and she signals Levi to look into the gorge. When Levi looks into the gorge with his telescope, he spots some strange creatures climbing up the west wall of the gorge. Levi immediately starts shooting them down and Drasa assists him. Together, they stop these creatures from climbing out within minutes. However, just when they think it's over, one of the creatures climbs the east post. Drasa shoots it with her gun and kicks it off into the gorge. It falls on a mine, causing an explosion, and a piece of metal hits Drasa's shoulder. Meanwhile, the creatures start climbing both sides. Levi and Drasa use their machine guns to shoot them and activate more mines as backup. Finally, they end up killing all the creatures until no more show up. At dawn, Levi is still alert, but Drasa is injured and dresses her wound. She then writes a note and shows it to Levi, telling him that it was her best birthday ever. During the day, Levi replaces the damaged mines in the walls of the gorge. He watches a drone emerge from the misty gorge and return into it. Now it's December and Christmas Day. Levi notices a bunch of lights in the store and puts them on a tree along with a note wishing Drasa Christmas. When Drasa notices it, she gets emotional. As time passes, Drasa and Levi grow closer and enjoy things together from a distance. They play chess through binoculars, converse through notes, and play drums for each other. Months pass by, and it's February. Levi jolts awake from a nightmare and heads towards the window where Drasa is watching her through her binoculars. On the day of February 14th, Levi goes out for a patrol and notices Drasa didn't come out. At night, he watches Drasa through his binoculars and finds her crying in front of her family photo. He asks her what's wrong, to which she writes back that she's been having a hard day and she wishes he could be there. Later, Levi is unable to sleep. He heads to the bunker, grabs a missile, removes its explosive material, and ties a cable around it. Levi builds a special contraption and shoots a rocket across the gorge, which gets stuck on a tree. Drasa notices Levi and wonders what he is doing. The rocket ignites a fire, and Drasa rushes to put it out. As Drasa notices the cable attached to the rocket, she grabs it and ties it firmly around the tree. She runs back to the tower where she sees Levi asking her for dinner. Levi grooms himself and picks up flowers for Drasa before ziplining across the gorge. Even though he struggles in the middle, he finally manages to make it on the other side. There, Levi meets Drasa for the first time. They greet each other, and Levi gives her the flowers. Drasa accepts the lowers, but points out that Levi is stinking. Levi agrees to take a shower. While he's washing, Drasa brings her new clothes that belonged to the previous soldier at the post. Later, Drasa and Levi chat over tea about their previous missions, the gorge and Levi's nightmares. Levi is certain they're still in the northern hemisphere. Levi then asks Drasa about the Hollow Men. However, she responds by saying that her father always told her that sometimes ignorance is a relief, but Levi believes the opposite. When Drasa asks Levi why he chose to be a sniper, and he explains that his father taught him to hunt and appreciate the art of a perfect shot, but he no longer enjoys it like he used to because he can't stop thinking about all the harm he's caused. Meanwhile, Drasa shares that she told her father everything, which eased her a little bit. At night, Dresa puts on the music and convinces Levi to join her. They spend some romantic time together. Later, they watch the stars together and talk about Dresa's father. Levi confesses that when he is sad, he reads or writes poetry in his diary. Dresa asks him to recite a poem, but he refuses. The next morning, Levi bids goodbye to Dresa and gets on the cable to return to his post. But just when he is in the middle of his way, mines start exploding due to some hollow men trying to climb out. The explosion ends up severing the rope connecting both posts. Levi falls into the gorge and immediately opens his parachute. Without wasting any time, Dresa grabs her gear and jumps into the gorge after Levi. She passes through the thick yellowish fog that covers the opening of the gorge and ends up falling into a river. Her parachute gets stuck in the rocks beneath the water, and Dresa struggles to get to the surface. She cuts it off using her knife, and the water waves take her along. She hits a rock and drops the auto-ascender. As she emerges on the surface of the river, she holds onto a log to come out. Meanwhile, Levi is unconscious, hanging off a tree. Suddenly, a strange centipede-like creature attacks him. He immediately wakes up and shoots it with his gun. Dresa hears the echo of the shot. Levi untangles the branches holding him and falls to the muddy ground. It turns out he fell onto another monster which grabs him in its claws. Right then, Dresa arrives and opens fire at the creature, rescuing Levi. After that, Dresa and Levi walk towards the east wall to find the cable end. Suddenly, they hear some strange screaming sounds before two hollow men appear there and attack them. Dresa and Levi fight them, shooting at those creatures with their rifles. Finally, they manage to kill them. Dresa checks her bag for the auto-ascender but fails to find it. She realizes she dropped it in the river and they're now trapped in the gorge as the walls are too high for them to climb. Mutually, they decide to follow the river in the hope that it'll drain somewhere out of the gorge. Before they leave, Levi notices that one of the dead creatures is wearing an old U.S. military uniform from the Second World War era. He immediately recalls his senior's story and reaches the conclusion that these creatures could be the lost battalions from the 1940s. The duo keeps moving through the forest, watching hundreds of skeletons on the way of these creatures that looked like a mixture of plants and humans. Eventually, they end up in an abandoned town. On hearing the same screaming sound, they head inside a church to hide. There they find skeletons on the benches. Levi smells cyanide on one of the skeletons and concludes that these people committed suicide. As they move around, they hear a strange sound. Dresa looks towards the ceiling of the church and a strange creature jumps to attack her. She immediately pushes it off and shoots at it. More creatures start jumping at them. Levi and Dresa open fire at them and shoot them down. However, hollow men start coming in from the door to attack them. Dresa runs out of bullets, so Levi comes to her rescue while she reloads her rifle. They fight the hollow men and the strange creature at the same time. Dresa tosses a grenade at the back wall of the church and blows it off. It makes them a way to escape. As Levi and Dresa move through the forest, they can still hear the screaming of the strange creatures everywhere around them. Suddenly, they notice the gorge wall near them with an old door at its bottom. They head inside it to hide from the creatures. In there, they discover a hidden facility. It's full of skeletons and lab equipment. Dresa finds a propane generator and turns it on. Levi finds a tape in one skeleton's hand and plays it on the projector. It's a video of a scientist from 1946 who tells about this community, which was formed as part of a top-secret coalition of East and West nations. She says that during the last years of World War II, they worked on creating biochemical missiles. However, an 8.1 magnitude earthquake hit the area and caused a chemical leak. The scientists started to contain the toxin, but it soon merged with the DNA of the local plants, animals, and even insects. The scientists also show branches on her stomach in the camera and inform that the symptoms of exposure start showing in 5 days. Since the base was in the gorge, the toxin never reached the rest of the world. Levi and Dresa realize they have to find a way out of the gorge as quickly as possible to save themselves from mutations. They search around and find a working computer from the early 2000s. Levi turns on the computer and discovers that this place belongs to Dark Lake, which is a private paramilitary corporation specializing in military research. He finds out that the gorge is not destroyed with a bomb yet because people still visit to continue the experiment. Dark Lake is collecting hybrid DNA from the gorge, and the drone they saw the other day was collecting samples for Dark Lake's experiments to create super soldiers. Levi also gets to know about the stray dog protocol, which turns out to be a nuclear bomb that will sterilize the area if a leak happens. Before they leave the place, Levi tells Drasa that in case they don't make it out of the gorge, he wants her to know it was worth it because he got to know her. As they head out, they are unable to see any creatures because of the fog. They toss a smoke grenade before coming out. Suddenly, a whip grabs Drace's ankle, and a hollow man on the horse drags her through the forest. She tries to cut the whip with her knife, but fails. She is also unable to shoot the rider, and it drags her into the area with red fog. Meanwhile, Levi follows the rider's tracks and eventually ends up finding the facility with a nuclear bomb inside. On the other hand, Hollow Man takes Drasa to a strange place and hangs her. He twists the branch stuck in her stomach to torture her before taking it out. Drasa kicks him and untangles the rope to set herself free. She fights the Hollow Man with all her might, but fails to overpower him. He attacks her with his sword, but Drasa burns him with the fire. As the Hollow Man yells in pain and tries to attack back at Drasa, Levi arrives just in time to shoot him down. Drasa and Levi reunite. Levi checks the dead Hollow Man and notices his name on the uniform. He recognizes it was the first soldier at the West Post and the one who named the Hollow Men. Drasa asks Levi where they are. He tells her that they're in the chemical missile facility. Levi takes the sword of the Hollow Man and they try to make their way out. They come across the place where the initial leak happened due to the earthquake. It's full of mutated creatures and contaminated fog. As they move around, Drasa's feet get stuck in the sticky branch of a creature, and the creatures start attacking them. Levi uses the sword to quickly cut all the branches attacking them, but a bigger creature arises. Levi continues to cut their way through with the sword, but then a branch grabs his ankle and drags him. Right then, Drasa shoots a rocket at it, causing a big explosion and burning all the creatures there. As they escape the facility, they come across a place with military jeeps in a garage. Levi tells Drasa that they're getting out of here because these jeeps have powerful winches that'll work just like an auto-ascender. They take off in one of the jeeps and drive towards the eastern wall to find the broken cable end. As they locate the cable, Levi ties it to the jeep. Meanwhile, Drasa shoots the Hollow Men approaching them. When she runs out of bullets, Levi takes her place and Drasa get in the jeep. They begin ascending the eastern wall. As they advance, Hollow Men follow them, climbing through the cable. Levi began to fight them with the sword, but they are more in number, so Drasa finds an axe in the toolbox and uses it to fight the Hollow Men. One of the Hollow Men jumps to push Levi, but manages to grab onto the jeep at the last moment. He stabs the jeep's gas tank and throws it at the Hollow Men. Then he attacks with the rocket and sets them on fire. Levi's leg gets badly injured due to the explosion hitting him against the wall. He asks Drasa to cut off the cable as they're almost at the top. Drasa cuts it, and the remaining Hollow Men fall back into the gorge with the jeep. After that, Drasa and Levi climb the rest of the way to East Post. There, they dress their wounds and agree to stay apart for a week as a quarantine in case they're infected. Levi tells Drasa that he was chosen for this mission because he had no one to wait for him, but now his case is flipped and he wants to live with her. Drasa suggests that she know a place in France and they can run away to live there. But Levi wants to break this cycle of posting at the gorge and its contamination before leaving. So they make a plan to destroy the gorge. Then Drasa gives Levi a new cable to make his way back to the West Post. They decide to meet next week before Levi ziplines back to his post. The next day is the reporting day. This time, Levi communicates with Bartholomew as she has learned that the drone research computer in the lab was turned on. Levi denies going into the gorge. Bartholomew concludes that the soldier at the East Post did it, so she orders Levi to kill her. Levi pretends to accept the mission. However, the next scene shows that Bartholomew knows that Levi turned on the computer with Drasa as a camera was installed in the computer. Now Bartholomew calls her commander and orders him to get a team ready to visit the gorge and kill Levi. The next morning, while Levi and Drasa are on patrol, they notice a helicopter advancing towards them. They immediately run into the forest. As the helicopter lands near the West Post, Bartholomew and her soldier come out of it and search for Levi in the tower. When they find out that both posts are empty, Bartholomew orders to send out quadcopters to kill them. However, Levi and Drasa bring them all down one by one as they are attacked by the quadcopters in the forest. At the West Post Tower, Bartholomew discovers the notes written by soldiers behind the bookshelf. She reads Levi's note about the truth eventually coming out. In the next scene, Levia and Drasa reach a high spot where they get into their sniper positions and shoot the cloakers and the mines they installed earlier. Their purpose was to trigger a chain reaction that starts with destroying all the cloakers in the area, exposing the gorge, and finally activating the stray dog protocol, destroying the gorge and its 4 kilometers radius with the atom bomb. As the sirens run due to the destruction of the Quakers, Bartholomew and her team rush to their helicopter to fly away in time. Meanwhile, Levi and Draca run as fast as they can to get out of the 4-kilometer radius. Eventually, the nuclear bomb goes off and destroys the place. The blast takes down the helicopter carrying Bartholomew and her soldiers. Draca manages to escape the explosion's reach, but Levi, badly injured, is pushed off the edge of a cliff and falls into a river. Draca spends 5 days quarantined in a cave. While searching through her jacket, she discovers a letter from Levi that he left behind in case he didn't make it. A month passes with no sign of him. Convinced he's gone, Draca finally opens the letter. Inside is a poem Levi wrote for her. Heartbroken but resilient, she moves to France to start a new life. One day, while working as a waitress at a cafe, she's shocked to see Levi sitting at a table. She tells him he's late, but Levi explains it took him time to recover from his injuries. The films end as they reunite at last.